The story begins with a group of hunters and specialists in a forest in Russia. One of them is the cryptozoologist Travis Preston and his team of scientists, who are in search of yet-to-be-cataloged species. While crossing the woods, they find paw prints and claw marks on the trees, and soon they discover the carcass of a large bear. However, not everyone in the group is after scientific discoveries, and this is why Travis laments seeing Harker with a rifle. Laughing, he replies that it's just for protection and continues to stay away from the group while they examine the bear. Travis finds an immense tooth in the carcass, indicating that the animal was attacked by something much larger. His colleague Brandon also boasts that he has measured some tracks so impressive they would embarrass Bigfoot. Travis's goal is to prove the existence of a prehistoric bear in that forest, but it is now getting very close to dark, and one of the team members is eager to leave. Travis refuses to abandon the project at this point and insists on staying in the forest regardless. During the night, they lie in wait while Harker scares the young Scot with stories of killer bears that smell fear. Brandon catches a furtive movement, and everyone laughs when they see a skunk coming out of the bushes, but the fun ends when the bear shows up right after it. Harker's theory is proven when the beast targets the oldest member, who is the most afraid of it. Travis doesn't allow the hunter to shoot the animal and begins to draw attention to himself, shouting and waving. As soon as the bear notices, he runs crazily to lure it into a trap, where he uses a tranquilizer dart. The beast seems to weaken immediately, but Harker starts shooting without warning, which appears to cut the sedative's effect. The bear becomes enraged, breaks the trap, and starts attacking everyone in its path. Unfortunately, one of the victims is Scott, and the boy does not survive the blow. Back in London, Travis tries to deal with the guilt while also countering the endless lawsuits that Harker has filed against him. When another lawyer enters his office, he thinks it's just another henchman of the hunter, but his name is Doug, and he represents a very wealthy client who is building a pipeline in China. Recent sightings of a mysterious creature have disrupted operations, and so he wants Travis's help to capture it. The scientist declines the invitation, still very shaken, but changes his mind when he sees a video of an animal that resembles a dragon. Excited, he boards a plane to China along with Brandon and Katie, introducing both to Doug when they arrive. He is with an interpreter named Bai Si, who will also serve as the group's guide. On the way to the base, Doug explains that some workers have gone missing, but some just fled in fear of the monster after that video was recorded. Travis wants to get started with his work right away, but Doug says that there are still some contract details to iron out, and they will only begin the next day. That night, one of the workers makes the final rounds and reports that everything is fine, but then a sudden noise intrigues him. With a flashlight, he begins to search for the source of the sound and becomes startled as the noise grows louder, as if something very large is moving quickly and bumping into everything around it. Thinking that danger is very close, he hurries to climb a ladder, and it's at the top that a huge animal suddenly attacks him. The next day, construction continues as if nothing had happened, and Bai Shi helps Travis through the gates. However, before he can park, an angry Chinese woman steps into the way, yelling, and demands to know who is in the car. She is Dr. Lan Zheng, and Travis explains that he was called in to investigate a wild animal. To his astonishment, she asks if his name is Jim Harker. Furthermore, Harker himself shows up shortly after and tries to prohibit Travis from entering the perimeter, saying he is a threat to everyone's safety. To make matters worse, he seems to have brought along a cameraman ready to record the adventure. Furious, Travis threatens to abandon the project, but his team convinces him to stay despite Doug's flimsy excuses. Rushing to find the creature before his rival, Travis speaks with a worker named Han Wu and asks to speak with the person who filmed the creature. At the same time, Katie and Doug are talking by the lakeside when a series of bubbles appears on the surface. Katie says that something seems to be scaring the fish, and Brandon gets a big scare when a wave hits his equipment. Realizing the danger, Katie tells Doug to get away from the water quickly, and he tries to obey, but panics when he sees the planks coming loose beneath his feet. A huge reptilian tail demolishes the pier, and Doug is stranded on a piece of it for a moment, completely frightened. Katie's screams snap him out of his trance, and he jumps quickly to dry land, barely escaping the marine beast. Han Wu takes Travis to Professor John Yu, who refuses to talk about the video and treats the scientist with suspicion, stating that it's unclear which side he is really on. After that, Doug calls Bai Shi and asks everyone to meet him at the morgue, where Katie takes the opportunity to tell Travis about the incident at the lake. Since the coroner insists on waiting for a pathologist before releasing the body, Travis has Brandon impersonate him since he is the only one on the team who speaks Chinese. The ruse becomes more complicated when the sheet is pulled back and Brandon almost vomits, disgusted by the terrible condition of the body. He then lets the accomplices in, and Katie finds a huge tooth still stuck to the victim. Sensing a discovery, Harker soon arrives at the morgue too and threatens more lawsuits if Travis does not hand over everything he found. When he mentions Scott's death and says the boy died because he was weak, Travis can't hold back and punches him. Later, Han Wu appears at the camp with John Yu, who has thought it over and decided to cooperate. He tells that his brother worked on the construction site and was one of the creature's victims, even though his death was declared an industrial accident. That's why he has worked hard to find the beast and managed to film it coming down a hillside near the lake. When Travis asks why John Yu decided to cooperate, he confesses that it was in comparison because Harker had also gone to school shortly after and offered a lot of money in exchange for information. John Yu says that he hates those kinds of people who behave as if everything has a price. He then takes Travis to the filming location, where they find an immense footprint near a shattered helmet covered in blood. The three are still amazed by the strength required to break that when something begins to shake the trees and Bai Shi almost goes into shock. Seeing that it is indeed the monster, Travis asks for the camera and runs after the beast through the woods, as if he himself were the predator and not the other way around. However, the dragon is much faster and makes several loops before diving into the lake, not allowing Travis to record the encounter. That night, Harker's men start to question the delay, reminding him of his promise to put an end to the attacks. Always insensitive, he says he only came to China because the target was very difficult, as no other challenge is worthy of a hunter like him. The only one who has the courage to retort is Dr. Zeng, and the two disagree about the nature of the creature. Harker still thinks it's a large crocodile, while the doctor doubts it is any known animal. She says she found very strange molecules in the water, but Harker doesn't want to hear about those findings and demands results from her, blaming the team for failing to locate his target. The next day, Travis speaks to the young people about his career and shares that he chose cryptozoology when he was still a boy because he had a brief encounter with a creature considered mythical, and no one believed him. Katie interrupts his memories to warn that there has been another attack, but even Doug cannot clear access to the location this time. Overhearing the conversation, Han Wu warns that he has his own means of getting there, and the scientist immediately agrees to follow him. While the young man distracts the guards, Travis hides behind bushes until he reaches the crime scene. After taking some photos, he finds a yellowish substance on the ground and begins to examine it when Zeng arrives armed. She has come to expel any curious members of the opposing team, but ends up fascinated by Travis's knowledge and is also surprised to hear him say that he does not intend to take down the monster. At night, one of her colleagues, named Fry, also begins to change sides and comments that his loyalty to Harker is hanging by a thread. Suddenly, a loud crash is heard nearby, and an alarm starts to sound, while dozens of workers run in panic. Zeng and Fry head in the opposite direction, camera ready for a possible sighting of the beast. The workers' desperation causes an accident, and one of them is nearly crushed in the confusion. Fortunately, he manages to escape, but only survives for a few seconds as the dragon snatches him shortly after. More and more convinced that this cannot be a crocodile, Zeng tries to talk to Harker the next day about the possibility of capturing the animal alive. He does not even let her finish speaking and implies that her relationship with Travis is more than professional, which explains all the attention to his crazy ideas. Katie convinces Doug to experience a bit more of the fieldwork, and he agrees to join the group for a nighttime boat ride. Brandon lowers the sonar equipment, and the team waits until something starts beeping, and everyone gets excited to see something approaching. Travis stands up and tries to see through the fog, smirking ironically when he sees the other team's boat. Despite this, he is pleased to see that Harker is not on board and that no one seems to defend him from insults. Suddenly, the devices begin to beep again, and both teams realize that there is something just beneath them. The volume quickly rises until it strikes the boat from below, knocking almost everyone into the water. While Fry and Zeng try to swim to Travis's boat, the other two spot the creature and start shooting at it, catching Harker's attention at the camp. No shot hits the beast, which becomes increasingly agitated, prompting both of them to decide to get out of there without waiting for anyone. Zeng is unable to swim, and Travis jumps into the water to save her, bringing the doctor back to the boat safely. Fry is almost drowning, and Travis tries to swim to him, but the monster reaches him first, and Fry is devoured in front of everyone. Knowing that digestion is quick, the others rush to get out of the lake before the beast comes after them and reach the shore with mere moments to spare. Harker is not moved at all to hear the news about Fry and even berates one of the hunters for not having warned that they were going to the lake. Traumatized by the incident, Doug begins to rebel against Travis's team, saying that perhaps Harker is right and it would be better to get rid of that monster as soon as possible. Katie, who was interested in Doug, is very disappointed to hear this, but Travis manages to change his mind by explaining that the creature is only defending its territory. Moreover, he reminds them that Harker only thinks about fame and has no interest in saving lives. His speech lifts the morale of the team somewhat, with the exception of Zung, who is still unsettled by her colleagues' coldness and Fry's loss. The next day, Katie also expresses concern over the size of the cage and the power of the darts, now that she estimates the dragon's size to be about 6 meters long. Then Brandon calls both of them to listen to what the microphone picked up underwater, and Katie says it sounds like a whale song. They begin to formulate a theory connecting the noise from construction with the creature's appearance in the same region, but many data are still needed to confirm the hypotheses. Zung mentions that her original crew did a complete geological analysis, but laments that it is impossible to share that with them since Harker keeps everything under tight wraps. Not willing to give up, Travis asks for her help to invade the rivals' quarters, and the two put the plan into action as soon as it gets dark, jumping over fences and hiding behind crates until they get close enough. Travis is about to break the double lock on the door when Zung calls to him, showing that she managed to open the window. However, the duo only spends a few minutes snooping around the office before they are caught. Harker confiscates the thumb drive where Travis was trying to save the data and ties the intruder's wrists, saying that he'll get rid of them in a very clever way. A bullet hole in each one is not recommended, as it could lead to unpleasant questions in the future. But if the two show up in pieces, nobody will suspect that the noble hunter used them to feed the killer crocodile. Harker leaves and locks the intruders in there, confident in the plastic ties holding them by the wrists. Little does he know how much he will regret this, as Travis melts it away in no time, frees Zung soon after, and even turns on the gas, causing an explosion that blows a hole in the wall sufficient for them to escape. After all this, the two run the wrong way and attract unwanted attention, having to improvise their way out of the yard as well. One of Harker's thugs manages to follow them into the woods, but Zung loses her patience and knocks him off the motorcycle with a piece of wood. They seize the opportunity to use the transport before the rest of the gang catches up with them. Even so, they return to camp empty-handed, and it is then that Doug hands him the thumb drive, simply stating that there are other forms of persuasion. The data reveals that there is a gallery of underground tunnels in the area, which is consistent with the yellow substance Travis found earlier. With this, they deduce that the creature must spend most of its time in there, which is why its presence is not detected by sonar. The team then sets off for another hunt, leaving Han Wu and Bai Shi behind this time, as Travis does not want to risk civilians again. The plan now is to use a contraption built by Brandon to emit an imitation of the creature's sound. However, when Zung detects a moving body 300 meters from the boat, Brandon fumbles with the device and fails to activate it in time. The beast arrives very quickly and suddenly shakes the boat, injuring Katie's leg. Without warning, Brandon jumps into the water and dives down to the device to make the necessary adjustment. The creature does not take long to return and swims directly toward him just as he manages to fix the problem. Seeing that there is no time to climb aboard the boat, Brandon swims to the surface and shouts, asking someone to press the button. In yet another heroic moment, Doug answers the call with a dramatic leap, and the device begins emitting sound waves as expected, scaring the creature away immediately. Seeing Katie's situation, Travis is willing to interrupt the hunt to take her to a hospital, but she doesn't let him waste the last chance to follow the creature to its lair. On the other side of the lake, Harker is in the boat with his thugs, and one of them spots the enemy vessel. Unaware they are being watched, Travis's team enters a cave, and the interior is so huge they can even disembark inside. Katie stays near the entrance, watching the boat and supervising the work of John Yu and Doug, who are assembling the cage. While Travis explores the back of the cave with Brandon and Zung, Harker arrives unexpectedly, and one of his thugs hits Doug when he starts to protest. Unaware of any of this, the others push forward through the cave, marveling at its size until they find the illustrious occupant, who is sleeping on a rock. Observing the creature from afar, Travis says it must be something between reptile and amphibian, completely unknown until now. The beast stirs with a grunt when a beam of flashlight passes, causing everyone to shrink away in fear for a moment. Once again, Brandon panics while setting up the dart shooter, and now the monster awakens very angrily. The three begin to run, and Travis tries to knock down the beast while it pursues Brandon. Luckily, he finds a side hole too narrow for the immense head to fit and curls up inside. Travis tells Brandon to aim for the mouth, but his shout ends up changing the target of the creature, forcing him to hide with Zung. A collision with the monster dislodges a huge rock that almost crushes the pair, and they continue to wriggle through the passages until Travis becomes cornered. He fires several times, unsure if he hit any darts, and eventually has to use the weapon as a shield when the creature charges at him. But then the immense body begins to soften, and the animal finally succumbs to the tranquilizer, collapsing to the side. Zung and Brandon soon overcome their fear to approach the impressive creature, but the trio's joy disappears with the sound of Harker's sarcastic applause echoing through the cave. Travis can hardly believe he is about to shoot a real bullet at such a rare being, especially while it is unconscious. He questions what kind of glory this is, as this is not how a hunt works, but Harker explains that his photos with the dead beast are all that matters. Indignant with this attitude from her former boss, Zung begins to verbally humiliate him, which distracts him. Brandon attacks the thug while Travis takes his gun and starts to fight with Harker. The only thing that makes the villains stop immediately is when Travis reveals the truth. This fallen animal is just a juvenile, and it wasn't the one that attacked their boat. He barely finishes revealing this when the mother appears, filled with fury and chased by one of the thugs. The other one panics upon seeing his colleague being eaten, and Brandon seizes the opportunity to flee, leading the way for his friends. Travis pulls Zung into a crevice where they can catch their breath in silence, but the thug suddenly appears, screaming and begging to be allowed to stay there as well. Travis covers his mouth, but the damage is done, and the monster attacks him while the duo runs for the exit. It is then that they discover that Harker is holding everyone hostage and has captured Katie with Doug in the cage. Travis decides to enter there too when the beast arrives and sees it throw Harker against the rocks, causing him to lose consciousness. Then it begins to shove the cage, which rolls with everyone inside until Brandon, the only one who stayed outside, manages to distract it. He is almost eaten when Travis saves him with the same strategy. He then tells everyone to flee to the boat and enters the cage alone, but with Brandon's device. As soon as he activates the device, the creature begins to thrash about and even lifts the entire cage with its neck, but it doesn't take long for it to succumb. Outside, everyone is anxious and calling for Travis when he finally emerges from the water. Sometime later, the animal is under observation in a nature reserve provided by China, and we find out that Harker was never found after that day. Additionally, Doug finally confesses the truth to his friends and says that the mysterious client is, in fact, himself.